Happy Thursday, everybody. Come on in. Welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT network here at Center Ice. I am Nick, and I am Nick only, as Brit is not going to be with us this week. She sends her love to all of you guys, and I do have some notes as well on some items as we roll on. So just me this week. Get to deal with my ugly mug, so apologize and hope you stick around still. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do so on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, that being said, we got the last of our season grades to get to. We're also going to talk about the Stanley Cup Final and a signing that occurred just a couple of days ago with the Avalanche and a certain second row center. So we'll get to all those. Let's kind of wrap up with the season grades first. Forwards, there's a lot more forwards. And then we'll kind of talk about the finals, and then we'll just roll into the last item of, for those of you who don't know already, the Brock Nelson signing. Okay, so that being said, there were a lot of forwards that did play with the Avalanche, okay? So I had to kind of make a cutoff at some point, and I basically just said, you know what, I think if you played, I think it was 20 games or something like that, I can't remember the exact amount, then I'll kind of bring you up. So that being said, or if you were traded here and finished the last of the bit or the season and you didn't quite reach to 20, I still kind of threw those in. Okay, so that being said, we'll kind of jump right into it here for the forwards season grades, starting with Chris Wagner. 28 games played, 1 goal, 0 assists for 1 point, -8 differential on the plus minus, 7 minutes, 5 seconds of average ice time. This one is interesting. I'm going to give him kind of a D+. Simply because, again, he played 28 games, right? So it wasn't like for a short stint. This was a good long while. And even though he didn't quite make mistakes, we saw a Chris Wagner in the season prior that showed he had some fight about him. A reason potentially to be on the, bottom 6 for sure, but on that bottom, that fourth line, I should say. But that didn't really fold into this 24-25 season. And like I said, while he didn't quite make all these mistakes per se, he did very little to continue to contribute like we thought that carryover would do from the previous season. So I'm going to give him a D+. Again, I'm not necessarily confident he makes that opening day roster this time. Just like instead of last season, there was some reason that he could kind of push into that, barring injuries, right? Now I'm not as confident, unfortunately. So kind of a depth guy that was going to hopefully stick, or does hopefully stick. Maybe he has a turnaround year. He's not going to be a bad healthy or a replacement if injuries do end up coming, but a healthy scratch more than anything is all I can really make of him. So that's a D+ for Chris Wagner. Moving on up the list, we have one that was traded as part of the Alexander Georgiev trade. Nikolai Kovalenko also moved his way over to San Jose as part of that trade, getting Giovanni Smith in return. But as far as Kovalenko, I mean, I was impressed, but there was more to prove. So I'm just going to give him a C, maybe C-. Kovalenko was a good addition when we brought him on board. He had a lot of promise. We brought him on late in a season, if I recall correctly. But this partial season, he kind of ended up becoming the casualty of a trade where when we got the better of the two goaltenders, they got the better of the two forwards that were swapped. And honestly, it goes to show he's a reliable forward. He's very athletic and energetic, great bursts of speed. Really good vision on the ice. But again, we're not really going to know fully the extent because he's no longer with us, right? And given the sample size of Kovalenko, 28 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points, there could have been more momentum, right? Where if he stayed with the Avs, maybe he reached 10 goals. But having only played about a quarter of a season with the Avs this time around and eventually going, again, we're not going to know, but he was on pace to be okay. So 12 minutes of ice time, -7 on the plus minus differential. Obviously, that comes with the inexperience of the NHL. Yeah, it's too bad that he was a piece that was moved. I obviously would have liked to have kept him, but that's kind of all in the past now. So we're not going to be able to tell. But I was hopeful for what I had seen. So I think I'll just settle on C, given his role, but given the fact that they were okay to dismiss all of his efforts in a trade, that's gotta account for something, unfortunately. So I'll give a C to Nikolai Kovalenko. Okay, next up was Ivan. I'm gonna say for Ivan, and again, the grade curvature only gets more and more intense the higher we go. So keep in mind we're still kind of bottom of the barrel. I'm going to give Ivan a B minus for his efforts, right? So here's his stats: 40 games, 5 goals, 3 assists, 8 points, a little over 10 minutes of ice time. Ivan, first off, awesome name to say. Always has been, always will be. He has been a very good go-getter for the Eagles, right? But there were a lot more flashes of greatness with him during the season than I originally thought there would be. I thought, he'd maybe get away with a couple of goals. I didn't think he'd get up to 40 games, but they liked him long enough. Obviously, injuries, played a factor in that. But I was impressed with what I saw. Obviously not the most perfect. He's not going to be the star of the show. He's not Nathan McKinnon. But what he was able to accomplish with those 8 points were very, I don't want to necessarily say like showboaty or flashy or anything like that, but they definitely required skill on a lot of those goals that I saw. In fact, I was there when he scored his first career goal against Utah. And again, he was very impressive all those times where he was able to get and accrue points. There were some things about him that was like, okay, things you can work on. But again, kind of the same thing with Kovalenko. It came with the age. So my worry, I guess now looking on the downside of this as to why I wasn't higher, my worry is that he turns into a Nikolai Kovalenko 2.0 where he'll be able to make it onto that opening day roster, clawing tooth and nail, injuries, whatever, however he gets on, he'll get on. But he may become the casualty of a trade where they were okay to dismiss him unless his play remains good. So that's going to be the big ask this coming season is work on your strength, work on your skills this offseason. Then if you make it onto the opening day roster, get games underneath you. Now the expectation is for you to put more points on the board because that's about half a season, which means he probably would have finished with about 16 points. I'll be generous and say 20 points, which wouldn't be a terrible season for Ivan. So I'll give him a B minus. Rather impressed. Okay, next on the list, is Miles Wood. Miles Wood with 32 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points with 11.21 for average ice time. This one's going to hurt. I give him a D plus as well. Again, obviously there were some injuries that took into effect, but toward the end of the season when he should have been, back ready and fighting shape, everything should have been great. You forgot about him. And a lot of that was because they scratched him a lot of games. So a down year for sure. Do I think this continues? No, I don't think it will. And I hope it doesn't. But it's again one of those seasons where stuff kind of comes along your way and you have a hard time and you kept fumbling the bag. Looking at his plus minus differential, a -5, but with those bursts of speed that he's got and the ability to play that kind of gritty and grimy game, you'd think he would have been more present on the ice. And that was the big failure point for me. Again, the expectation is not for him to go out and get 20 goals in a season, right? 10, 12, something like that is about what I'm expecting. But even then, he fell short of that. Injuries aside, he could have made that in those 37 games. He could have at least had 20 points. I think he could have. Is that asking too much? Maybe, but we've seen how he's performed before. In fact, 2 seasons ago against Dallas, he has an overtime winner in game 3, 4, one of those two, where he just has a breakout burst of great speed and gets it past Ottinger, and that's why you had him signed. Now, that being said, I think it's going to be kind of the same thing as Ivan, only in a more intense manner, because again, this guy is signed for a very long time. That was one of 6 years at, I believe, his $2.5 million price point. So this is going to be one of like hey, you're going to need to really change stuff in order for us to feel as if we are giving or getting a value in you, reason to stay on the team. I don't want to necessarily say he gets a slap on the wrist and told no, but there's going to be eyeballs on him, right? So he's going to really need to perform well this next coming season. Otherwise, if he shows signs of, inability to be what he once was because of an injury, or there's a mental fatigue or whatever it is, it's going to be tough to have him play meaningful minutes, let alone playing in games. And that down the line equates to getting a trade or getting sent down or stuff like that. I definitely don't want to see that, because I have seen what he can be capable of. He just didn't live up to it this year. So D+ for Miles Wood. Okay, next on the list is Jack Drury. This one's going to be really fun. This one was my surprise of, I'd probably say the surprise of the season as far as grades go. So for Jack Drury, 33 games played, 5 goals, 4 assists for a total of 9 points, just under 13 minutes of average ice time, and a flat 0 for a plus minus. Now Chris Drury doing what he does, and he's kind of a heavier body. I was remarkably impressed, actually, with him. I was quite impressed. So I'm going to give him a B, a solid B. Reason for that is not only because he put himself in really great positions. In fact, he would have had a lot more goals if I recall the season going correctly, where he could have had probably 10 goals, no problem. And again, where his points should kind of be right around there with Miles Wood or so, 15, Ivan, 15 around, right? He could have accomplished that. There were some goals and assists that were taken off of him, but he put himself in very good positions and moved the puck really well. He was great on his forecheck. He was great on his back check. Keep in mind, as a fourth line center, right? Which again, you're expecting to shore up that bottom, and I think that's a really good fit for him. I quite like that he was on the fourth line down there, and I hope I hope he kind of sticks around for it. I was quite impressed. What I'm seeing in him is just a couple years behind Logan O'Connor and his type of play, and obviously Logan O'Connor's been working out really good. So the downside to that, though, is he does have those times, if I'm looking at the stat line correctly, he does have those times where he is defensively out of position, right? And again, obviously a flat 0 on a plus minus means he's on the ice for more times, for the same amount of times that he's getting scored on. But what I've noticed is he's just out of those positions ever so often. Now, the one place he's not out of position on is on the penalty kill. he was great. He was really good. But on your 5-on-5s, when they have set up in the offensive zone, he kind of wades back into what he thought was a penalty kill formation, which he didn't need to be, which opened up a lot of doors. So obviously things to work on for him, but nonetheless, very impressed with Jack Drury. Excited to see how this following season goes for him. Okay, next on the list, Charlie Coyle. Charlie Coyle had 19 games with the Avalanche, 2 goals, 11 assists for 13 points, 14.48 for average ice time. What we've seen, and again, this is another one where he came on halfway through the season. Well, I say halfway, but the All-Star break and after that trade deadline, you really play like a month with the team. So that being said, throughout his season, I should say, just with the Avs, 19 games, 2 goals, 11 assists, what I've seen is a C+ worthy grade, right? It's passing, everything was okay. However, I had seen old highlights. I could say old, but like older highlights of Charlie Coyle, and that was the player I was expecting to get. Now, that being said, similarly to the others that I had mentioned that were part of a trade here, they don't play a full season, so obviously there's a lot they could have accomplished. So that's why it's a C+, because again, 2 goals when you're being paid a little over $5 million and you're a third line center. Yeah, that's an expensive third line center where you should be producing more than that payment deserves, right? I'm getting a little technical with the payment and the production from it, but that's how I see it, right? Obviously, now that he's going to have a full season with the Avalanche, I'm hoping he lives up to that pay and we see him back in those older Boston days where he was kind of the menace on the ice, right? So it's more of a looking forward to a full season with him, similar to kind of how Lehkonen and Manson, kind of when we got them on the year we won the cup. Lehkonen obviously fell right in great. But the following season, he was even better with his own production, right? So I'm hoping it kind of is like that, where it's, we got him, he held the fort fine, but given what he has done and brought in the past, you'd like to revitalize that in the upcoming season. So unfortunately, wasn't the highest of marks, not the most impressed with him as far as that offensive play. It fell flat, in my opinion. But I am excited for next season to see if we get that original Charlie Coyle. Okay, that being said, Brock Nelson, and we'll get to his news in a second after everything is said and done. But for now, we're just going to talk about his play. Brock Nelson, the hope was he was going to come in and be the fix-all problem to the 2C, right? As in everything was fine. But it didn't necessarily go as planned. He wasn't terrible, mind you, but I feel like I have to give Brock Nelson, who played 19 games, 6 goals, 7 assists for 13 points, and just about 17 and a half minutes of total ice or average ice time. I mean, I'm going to say a B-. Okay, so because of that, now keep in mind, 19 games played and 13 points, you're 6 away from a point per game, right? So he's about what, 0.75? Is that kind of the math, right? So he's going to be okay, right? I want people to realize that he's going to be fine. His playoff experience is great. Okay. Obviously, getting traded from a team he loved so much, he was going to be a lifelonger on. Yeah, players are human, right? They think about these types of things and it gets to them. So to still have 13 points after all that, I mean, that tracks for, what would it be, playing about a quarter of the season, 6, 12, 18. He would have had about 24 goals, assuming that same statistic. That's fine, right? That's totally fine. The one thing that I did think was a bit off about him was that he played shaken at times, right? Where he wasn't that physical, aggressive, scoring 2C. He was kind of more timid, I guess is one way to say it. not the most aggressive that we've seen him before. The one odd thing I will say is that it does appear that he de-aged himself when he came to Denver, so that was pretty good. So hopefully he got some years back. But he played more reserved. He played a lot more reserved than I thought he would. Now, that being said, I think we as Avalanche fans, I think, need to get over that hump of we have to compare everything to Nazem Kadri. Because if you look at it, 24 goals as a 2C is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And with the playoff experience that he has going to with the Islanders, back-to-back Eastern Conference finals in those years when Tampa moved on, he's got the experience. He's got the know-how. He brings that to the Avalanche, right? It's just something fell flat. That's really it. He wasn't a burden most of the time. I mean, his penalty minutes alone were 4 in those 19 games. That's 2 penalties. That's it, right? So he's going to be fine. It's just you were hoping he was going to make an immediate and larger impact than expected. But again, he played a month plus some playoffs for the Avs. So we'll give him a look for, I guess, the next 3 seasons. And we'll get to that news in a second. Okay, that being said, B- for Brock Nelson, and we'll move on. Okay, next. This one's going to be really fun too, just because of how impressed I was with him as well. We're going to Parker Kelly. Played nearly an entire season on that 4th line. Obviously, kind of, I guess, how Bednar does it. He switches things up, doesn't he? So he kind of went all over the place, but mostly 4th line was his assignment. Parker Kelly had 80 games, 8 goals, 11 assists for 19 points, and about 12 minutes and 44 seconds of average ice time. If there's one, like I said, with oh my gosh, I'm blanking on names, Jack Drury. If there's another one that I also give a surprise of the season, it's Parker Kelly. And maybe not for the reasons you think. I give Parker Kelly an A-. Okay. Now, granted, he's bottom 6. Okay. And his role is not the same as everyone else's. I have, however, been very impressed with his defensive ability, as well as stick handling, puck handling while in the offensive zone. But that defense, particularly one game where he took 6 blocked shots consecutively, incredible. And him on the penalty kill was damn near flawless, right? I was extremely impressed with that. If that's your 4th line and he's out there getting 8 goals, and we could even say 10, right? Because of a couple that should have gone in, right? But 8 goals for 19 points, nearing 20 for 4th line, that's okay. I'm perfectly happy with that, right? So obviously there are aspects to his game that do need a little help. Obviously, when you have 29 penalty minutes, playing as much as you have on the 4th line, where you're just supposed to go in and kind of move the puck around and produce against their 4th line, when you have the better 4th line, I should qualify that. Apologies. Taking penalties is not going to help that issue. However, just with what we've seen on his defensive front, being a very kind of defensive-oriented forward, it's great. It's a very nice peace of mind, in my opinion, that I hope kind of carries with him through the next season. And I hope you hope we retain him. You hope you get him a good extension, even if he plays well. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm quite impressed with what I saw in Parker Kelly, and I think it's you give him his flowers for this season, because I thought he was going to be rather unimpressive, rather forgettable, but he wasn't. As soon as Parker Kelly was out there on that penalty kill unit, especially down the stretch of the season, I felt a lot more comfortable. I felt more comfortable with him pairing with Logan O'Connor than I did anyone else, it seemed, right? It was incredible. So, give Parker Kelly his flowers. A-. Very impressed with him this season. Next, Logan O'Connor. Logan O'Connor did break the 20-point threshold. So 80 games played, 10 goals, 11 assists for 21 points, and he had a little over 14 minutes of average ice time. Big thing with Logan though is his he's a workhorse. He has the sheer grit and drive and work that he doesn't get. He's not afraid to get in a fight. He's not afraid to push his own weight around and things like that. But you pair that with his just outrageous speed and still ability to shoot short-handed. I mean, he, like I said with Parker Kelly, Logan O'Connor was your other guy where you're like, this guy's just he lies in wait like a cat with a mouse, just kind of ready to ensnare it. And then when that puck comes, he knows how to break that up. So again, very well defensively on that penalty kill. And there weren't a lot of times where he made mistakes. So that being said, I'm gonna give Logan O'Connor a B plus. We know what to expect of him. He did fine. There were some times again where I would have rather seen him shoot than pass. So he kind of does make those late mistakes that end up not having the puck not go in the net. But you got to respect the hustle. You got to respect how he plays his game, the craft in which he's cultivated down there on his bottom, dare I say, middle six role now on like a third line particularly. And it's great to have him and have him signed for longer. Obviously, we got an extension in place with him. I mean, no notes. He's just great in the role he plays as a depth piece. So very impressed. B plus. I think that next big step though is definitely getting that offensive firepower put into his game. I mean, he's got it, but it's all a matter of fine tuning it so that way he becomes an offensive threat even more so. Okay. Next on the list is Joel Kiviranta. 79 games played, 16 goals, 7 assists for 23 points. Again, another, I guess, call it a resurgence, if you will. I give Joel Kiviranta a B plus, nearing A minus because he had a hat trick in the season. He found his offensive game this season, which is very comforting. He, very similar to Logan O'Connor, was not afraid to push others around, throw his weight around, check the body a little bit. And overall, much more noticeable on the ice. And again, bottom six role, he knows now his depth role and has settled into that role rather comfortably. The one place I will kind of ding him for, though, is the defense. Still very lackluster, obviously, but with a plus 15 on the plus minus differential, clearly he did enough. Granted, maybe he was with other people that kind of did it, but did enough to always be on the ice at the right moment in time. He was really good with moving the puck around. And there were even a lot of times where he was kind of up there when they were shifting the lines around, I should say. He was often put with Nathan McKinnon while they were shuffling things around, and that's where a lot of his production came from. So maybe there's something in that. Maybe he plays up to his talent level that he's with while he's on the ice. However the reason, though, 16 goals. Great number for him. Like if he hovers around that 15-16 range, I'm happy every single time, right? The barring obviously stupid penalties and stuff, which he did have some, but the pros the pros outweighed the cons as far as his play is concerned. So very impressed with him. B plus as well. Okay, moving on up is Martin Necas. This one's going to be fun. So obviously, goes without saying, Necas came over from Carolina as part of the Mikko Rantanen deal. Now with that though, 30 games, 11 goals, 17 assists for 28 points, so almost a point per game. And he had an average ice time of 20 minutes and 29 seconds. 6 minutes of penalty time, by the way. That's really impressive. I am excited to see how this goes, right, with Marty Necas. He has a very high ceiling, and he has qualities about him that are very Mikko Rantanen-esque, right? I think if you're able to put an extension in place, which full disclosure, I think he should get it. He could be one of those top tier, if not elite tier players 2, 3 years down the line, but he's already for sure first line caliber. He's going to be a very good piece where, as far as play is concerned, you will not notice anymore a drop from Rantanen to Natchez. It will meld into the same thing. I bet you. I'm hoping it does, because based off of what I've seen, there's a lot that can be said about him. So for that reason, I'm going to give him an A-. Very impressed with the ability for not only his zone entries, which he was very good, especially on the power play. He began to figure out the system rather early, but the best part is he brought his own flavor and flair into not only the power play, but the offense as a whole. The big thing I liked about him, though, was he's not afraid to shoot the puck in any situation, and that was one thing that seemed to be missing on that power play specifically, where if anything came to him and he had any opportunity, he fires it. And that was one thing that I had been complaining and still will probably complain on for this last season and multiple seasons past. But he gets it, right? So I'm seeing a very good trend with him. I'm very excited to see what a full season does. Obviously, there's rumors been swirling that he wasn't quite pleased with his time, and it's like, I don't believe that. Unfortunately, I think he had a great time, especially now that he has someone to attune to in Nathan McKinnon and Gabe Landeskog. He's going to fit pretty well, I think. And I would very much like to see an extension get done with him. So we have that top six, hook, line, and sinker. It's going to be amazing, right? And for him to do as well as he did, again, 28 points in 30 games, I'm excited, right? A-. Obviously, there's some aspects to his defensive game that could be fixed. But given his caliber of firepower, that he, being top line, I'm willing to be okay with turning a blind eye, if you will, to that fact. So A- for Marty Natchez. I'm part of the Marty party myself, so good things I'm hoping are in store. Okay, after that is Ross Colton. Ross got 61 games played. Obviously, had an injury kind of there in the middle that kind of derailed him toward the end of the season. But 61 games, 16 goals, 13 assists for 29 points, and he had 14 minutes and 25 seconds of ice time. There is something very Andre Burakovsky-esque about Ross Colton. He's streaky that I'm starting to notice, right? And if I haven't seen the writing on the wall earlier, that's on me, right? But with that being said, I was hoping to see more out of Ross, right? I'm not going to say he was an absolute failure, because obviously 29 points is still okay. But on the third line where you had Logan O'Connor and you had, at the time, Miles Wood, that was that speed line, right? That burst of energy line that kind of fell flat. Miles Wood gets scratched. Ross ends up getting scratched a time or two, and injuries kind of came into effect on that. So I'm giving Ross Colton a C. A lot that went into that grade is because, again, the times he had been healthy, he was on the ice correctly as far as position. I should say he's on the ice correctly. Obviously, he'd be on the ice correctly. But a lot of times he felt like insecure about his decisions, be they pass, be they shoot, be they check, be they whatever. He was usually that guy that was up against the boards and those scrums, completing at the face-off after the puck drops. You didn't see a lot of that, unfortunately. And being the energetic guy after he scores, you would kind of think, and again, 16 goals is okay, but I've seen where he gets past the 20 mark. I've seen where he is also a miniature field general, if you will. Just something off. Something fell down. And you're hoping he picks it back up next season. So it's one of those things where you're disappointed because you wanted that 3C spot, I guess, if you will, or third line spot to be definitively his and his to cultivate and maximize. But you didn't see that, right? So, and exactly with Andy's comment here, what I was saying. Um, so you're hoping with this addition to Charlie Coyle that there's the Coyle, Colton, and O'Connor line, I should say, for next season. Maybe something does come of that, right? So a C, something fell flat. Again, the words you just tell him are work on it in the off season, fix it. We'll try it again. Okay, next on the list is Val Nichushkin, playing half a season, basically 41 games, or excuse me, 43 games, 21 goals, 13 assists, 34 points for 19 minutes and 44 seconds of ice time. Val is an impact player. You can tell when he is not on the ice for whatever reason. To answer Andy's question, Coyle is under contract for this next season, and then he hits the free agent market. So if there is something that is going to be done as far as extension, he better play well next season. But yes, he is going to be under contract for this next season. But back to Val, you can tell when he's not playing, and the vibe of the team is much more shallow or hunched or shriveled. There's no real, I don't want to say size, but bolster, like the stature about it. And with his offensive ability and the fact that his career just took off when he came on to Colorado, it hurts when he's not there. And because of that, and given the fact that again he played half a season, but nearly had the same amount of points as he did games, I give Val a B plus. You know, obviously things that can be better. His penalty kill is good still, which is great. But you missed him. And the reason I can't get him into an A category, even though I'd really like to, is because he didn't play. He played half of a season. Injuries and taking time off. Obviously, the suspension, a large part of that. The great news, though, is that we had a postseason where there wasn't drama with Val Nichushkin. What was a lot of people's fear for being a third year in a row, he didn't have that. Now, that being said, nobody really had that stellar of a series against Dallas, and Val Nichushkin did kind of wither, I would say. But this is the regular season judgment, right? And which in that regular season, he was trustworthy. He was fine. There was nothing to really complain about. Not a lot of penalty minutes, fine with ice time. It's plus minus, was it plus 11? There was, again, he could have done so much more. Like if he played the rest of the season, that's over 40 goals. That's great, right? So B plus for Val. Excited to see him come back next season, playing a full season. So hopefully he just stays healthy and stays and keeps his nose clean. Okay, next on the list is Casey Middlestat, part of the Charlie Coyle trade. So he did not finish with the Avalanche, and he finished with 63 games played, 11 goals, 23 assists for 34 points. The big kicker, negative 12 on the plus minus, and a 17-minute flat average ice time. Casey Middlestat came in last season from a trade, and you think he had promise. You know, he was going to be that 2C that we had signed, sealed, and delivered. Everything was going to be great, and he got off to an aggressively sluggish start. So given that 2C responsibility was his, and unfortunately he fumbled the bag, I'm going to have to give him a C minus. That he was okay. He was enough. He was plenty fine to be in the roster. That's not the question. But to be that 2C, and again, the expectation is very Nazem Kadri-esque. The expectation was for him to go and have that 2C, and he just didn't do it, right? Scoring probably once every third game. very lackluster, shell of himself at field. Nothing from the the last or the midseason acquisition that we saw the year prior didn't show up. So unfortunately, that in a win now situation, and the 2C is yours, you got to do something with it, and that's what now Brock Nelson is going to hopefully bring with that. So unfortunate that he saw 2 half seasons with the Avs, but a C minus. Really unfortunate. You were hoping to have it be his and sign long term, which I mean he would have had we not traded him. So just unfortunate. C minus for Casey Middlestat. Okay, next on the list is Jonathan Drouin. The statistics feel sneaky with Jonathan Drouin because with 43 games played, the same amount as Val, missed half a season, which was huge. He too had 11 goals, 26 assists for 37 points, 18 minutes, 10 seconds of ice time. I'm going to give him a B, just a solid B on this, because 43 games played and you have 37 points. Again, nearly a point per game. The reason I can't give him based off of statistic alone, they obviously didn't play the other half of the season because of injury, but there were a lot of times where you did forget he was there. There were times where he was the hero. He saved the day. He saved the game. He took matters into his own hands for overtime, or he ties the game with 6 seconds left like they did against Buffalo. But that was pretty far and few between, unfortunately. So if he resigns, which I am hoping that they do, though this Brock Nelson news does make it a little bit more difficult to see that happening. If he does stick around for a season, 2, 3, whatever, and plays a full season, you're definitely going to want to be noticed, especially if you're playing on that same line as Nathan McKinnon or as Natchez or whatever they had for him being on that first line. He was fine. Statistics back that up, but you need to be visible. There's a difference between just being there and not making mistakes and being visible. And in his case, it was for the good. He was a +4, didn't have a lot of penalty minutes. So solid B. Hopefully things turn up for the better. I would like to get him re-signed to a 2-3 year deal and just kind of keep that train rolling. It was a project that we deem a success. He turned his career around, got whatever mental fatigue or depression, whatever was going on in Montreal, got that out of his system, and he's back to his old self. So definitely would like to see that stay in Colorado. Okay, 3 more. One is Arturi Lehkonen. Arturi had 69 games played, 27 goals, 18 assists for 45 points, average ice time of 20 minutes, 22 seconds. So Arturi Lehkonen, the good stick Lecky vibes, right? He's fine. He's great. It just seems like he loves his time here. Obviously, I think now he's going to be going on the last, let's see, 23 to 45. I think this would be his last year of his contract, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2. But with that kind of production that he's had, he can get plus 50 points, obviously missed a handful of games. He's always in the right place at the right time. Obviously, defensively, he's shown to show in some improvement. But being on that second line and even kind of jumping up to the first every now and again, he held his own. For that, again, I'm going to give him an A minus. Everything's great with Lehkonen. Arturi Lehkonen, I was there to see him get his first career hat trick in Utah. I went nuts because I knew how much he deserved it. The only bad thing is I couldn't throw my hat far into the rink, so I had to keep it on me because I was upper bowl. But I digress. He's trustworthy. He's again one of those players where you can tell when he's not on the ice, right? And you ask, where's Lecky? Did something happen to him? Because you're used to a certain style of gameplay. So the oddball on that, though, is 45 points does seem low, and that's because his assists did take a dip, right? Typically, we have seen him get into that 55, 60 point range. Goals are fine. I'm not concerned with that. Just the assists, I would like to see a bump up. And B, even more visible, so to speak, on the defensive end, even though he has taken a step up. But I'm totally great with him. I don't have any concern, immediate concern, I should say. Okay, so A- for Arturi Lehkonen. All right, we'll get through this together. So just if you have to hold my hand, I will offer you my hand. We're going to grade Mikko Rantanen. So that being said, Mikko Rantanen, who is no longer with the Avalanche, had 49 games played, 25 goals, 39 assists for 64 points, 22 minutes and 29 seconds of ice time. The big kicker with him, obviously taking those kind of boneheaded penalties, which even Nathan MacKinnon was guilty of. Off ice stuff aside, the deal not getting worked out and stuff, Rantanen was on pace to have an A game. So I will give him an A. Okay, we're talking about just the ice, not the off-ice antics, just play alone. He gets the A. Okay, he is one of those elite tier players, and it's not fun to see him go, and it was very shocking for all of us. But he was playing fine. Yeah, there were spurts where he disappeared, but he was going to be that 100-point player yet again, right? And if you cross 100 points, to me, you did more than enough, right? So it was really hard again to see him leave, to see that trade, how that whole sequence went down, the fact that he happened to be the one to score the hat trick to knock us out in game 7. That hurts. I understand, right? Like I was very RBF during those last few minutes of game 7. I was not happy, keep in mind, right? And I missed Mikko, probably more than a lot of you, right? But on ice product, he was going to be flawless. So I give him an A. Would have liked to see it work out. Maybe down the line he gets sick of Dallas and he randomly reemerges on the Avalanche. Wouldn't that be something? But based off of the metrics alone, the numbers alone, and on the ice production, he is an A player. Okay. So that being said, we're okay. Everyone's getting through this. Good. Take a deep breath because we got the last big gun to talk about, and that is Nathan MacKinnon. A plus. The end. Right? 116 points, won the Hart Trophy, should win. I mean, obviously biased here, but should win the Hart Trophy again. There's nothing wrong with his style of play, right? The one thing that I do find strange, it's not a bad thing per se, but that he can personally pick and choose if he's the goal man or if he's the assist man, right? 32 goals in 79 games, 84 assists for 116 points, plus 25 on the plus minus differential, and 22 minutes, 46 seconds of average ice time. Again, anything as far as goals above 30, great. And that's just it, is that's because it feels as if he's chosen to be like that. He could have had 40 without issue, right? A lot of selfless play ended equating that to an assist instead of a goal point. So he continues to be one of the best in the league, right? A big thing about that though is he will still, I guess if there is any ding, he does complain and he does take the time to go to the referee to whine about something when the play is going away and he's behind it. That is the one ding I will say. And he did have a lot of penalty minutes, 41 penalty minutes through the season, which is a good amount. He found himself kind of getting caught with the hands in the cookie jar a lot more often than he should. But the offense makes up for that, right? He can take matters into his own hands. He has taken matters into his own hands. So it's Nathan MacKinnon, right? He wins the Hart Trophy for a reason. He's won now a Stanley Cup with that 2022 team for a reason. There's no sign of him slowing down, so no sign of his grade slowing down. So A+ for him. Excited to see kind of how he builds off of this, obviously being a down season again where he gets fired up in those types of situations. So I'm excited to see how he carries that team into the future. Okay, I guess I will throw one honorable mention in there. Gabe Landeskog gets an A+ from me, from coming back from an injury, scoring and coming back into NHL playoffs nonetheless, scoring a goal, producing. I'm excited to see the captain finally back for a full season after what felt like 10 years of him not being there. So honorable mention, A+ for Gabe Landeskog. Had to throw that in there. Okay, so that being said, that took a lot of time, so we'll kind of make these other 2 points really quick. I'm going to flip-flop the order that I said. We're going to talk about the Brock Nelson signing first, and then we'll talk Stanley Cup final here last. So, Brock Nelson a couple of days ago, out of a lot of uncertainty, signs a 3-year extension with the Avalanche at $7.5 million. Thoughts on that were, first, I hope he finally is the solution. And unfortunately, I cannot say he is, right? Like the definitive, yes, this is him. He could definitely fit that mold, but we have not had a definitive 2C. Comfort didn't work. Newhook didn't work. Middlestat didn't work. You haven't had that. So unfortunately, I don't know if it's a positional curse or what. I'm happy to have him, right? I am excited to see if he is the guy, but I can't say that for certain now because of the fact that the past 3 have not been the right guy. The big thing that I have been asked on in this from family, colleagues, friends, whatever, is the pay. 7.5 is a lot, in my opinion, right? Would I had liked to see that number be less? Yeah, I would have. I do feel it is a bit overpaid. However, and with what money, right? However, if he's able to play up to that statistic, like I said last time, he was on pace to be just fine as a 2C. And in those 19 or 20, however many games I said, he was going to be fine, right? As long as that can carry over, I will keep my mouth shut about the pay, right? But that's going to depend on how this next season or 3 seasons go. I'm glad he chose to stay. Obviously, that means something good with the organization. But it's just a lot of hold your breath. Here we go. Let's see what happens, because he's probably been the best shot since Nazem Kadri to be that definitive 2C. So that being said, I'm extremely happy to have him. Obviously, big name, national player for Team USA. Very, very skilled still. He looks like he's de-aged. His hair color's coming back. I don't know if that's an Islanders curse or what. So great to have him. 3 years, $7.5 million. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or just DM us what you think of the Brock Nelson signing. I'm happy, but I'm holding my breath. Okay, that's basically going to be the takeaway that I have for this. Okay, that being said, and that out of the way, Stanley Cup final has been going on, I should say, and the Oilers have a 1-game advantage in an overtime win from Leon Draisaitl. What are my thoughts? What are our thoughts? Well, let me share you Brit's first. So Brit, again, sends her apologies that she couldn't be on the show, but does want to give this message to what she believes is going to be key for the Stanley Cup final and what it's going to boil down to. And so I'm not going to, read word for word, but I'm going to paraphrase. She believes that this is going to come down to the goaltending. It's going to be Stuart Skinner and his hot coldness versus Bobrovsky and his wear and tear. So if Florida is to repeat and go back to back, Brit believes that it's going to have to be a cumulative. Bobrovsky has to dig deeper than anyone else because they have been to 3 now consecutive Stanley Cup finals. That extends a big toll on the body. And so Bobrovsky cannot be fatigued in any capacity. That being said, it would definitely help if the offense, or in this case, the defense, takes some stress off of his shoulders and keeps him fresh, so to speak. So if they can manage to accomplish that, Bobrovsky, being an elite tier goaltender, is going to play okay at the bare minimum. right? He may need to steal some games if the offense cannot come through. He may have to be the guy that steals games for the Panthers if they are to get this done. So with Edmonton and Stuart Skinner, he's either amazing or he's a sub 900 goaltender, meaning he's hot or he is cold. And that's Brit's key for the Edmonton Oilers winning the Stanley Cup final is Stuart Skinner has to be hot for the next 6 games if it comes to that, or 3 more wins. The big kicker on this one, though, is they have the offensive firepower. Scoring is going to come no matter what. They do not play a physical game or as a physical game as Florida. They're going to need to. They did show that, I will add, in game 1, but they'll play their games. They'll play their games. But it's going to come down to if Stuart Skinner is going to be this hot goaltender versus that cold goaltender. And to be completely honest, I agree with that take, right? Where goaltending is going to be the reason this Stanley Cup final is going to go the way it is. Now, that being said, I'm going to introduce my thoughts to this. This final feels like it's going to have all the makings of going to 7 plus overtime. Okay. I could be dead wrong, but based off of the one game I've seen, Edmonton came out striking while the iron was hot, scoring against Bobrovsky. Florida put 3, almost, I don't want to say in succession, but just 1, 2, and then a third early in the second period. And it seemed like a far cry for Edmonton because it's like, what do you do? You know, it's Stuart Skinner had a couple of out of position moments. There was one that was challenged for goaltender interference, which I personally believe it was. I don't care if you accidentally fall into or are tripped into the goaltender by accident. He interfered, but I'm not the rules expert, so I won't complain. But it just feels like this is going to have one of those it goes the distance moments. My big thing, though, is going to see, or I guess for each team, my big thing is going to be penalties. Both of these teams have very potent power plays, right? Edmonton particularly. So I'm going to kind of gear this key more toward Florida than I am to Edmonton. They need to stay out of the penalty box. It already bit them in the hand that first game in overtime. Minute 46, you commit a delay game penalty, and that's all she wrote, right? They score on that ensuing power play. So for Florida, you're going to need to keep your nose clean. The hard part about this, though, is that this is a scrappy team. They like to fight. They like to get all up in your business. They like to push the body around. You're going to have to figure out a way to make both of those work where you're playing aggressive and physical like you're used to, but not committing those boneheaded penalties, giving Edmonton a power play. Because as great as Bobrovsky is, if he is getting peppered consistently with shots, eventually he lets his guard down on one of those, and it could be the one you need, that needed to save. So that's going to be my key to the game for Florida in this series. You have to keep the nose clean. For Edmonton, my big thing is going to be getting around the defense. Not an impossible task. However, as potent as you are, Florida has this way of just sealing up shots, they're rather aggressive on defense. You're going to need to figure out, a way around that in order to win this series, in 5 or 6, right? If they can figure that out, because defense should be okay now that Matthias Ekholm has come back for the Oilers, and Bouchard's out there, Darnell Nurse is still out there, so there's still some pretty big hitters that are fine defensively. That as long as they're playing their game, Stuart Skinner shouldn't have anything to worry about. But it's on the offensive zone of things where it's like, yeah, you can have all the firepower you want, but the problem is when you have that type of firepower with McDavid and Draisaitl and I was going to say Zach Heinen, but he's unfortunately out for the rest of this playoff. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I mean, you name it. If you have that elite caliber of players, they are going to be seeking the perfect shot more times than not. And Florida doesn't really hand those out freely, okay? You're going to need to take any chance you can, and a lot of these goals may have to come as rebounds, right? Or kind of those in the blue crease, where's the puck, skirmishes in front, deflections. It's going to need to be unconventional from the Edmonton way. So if you can figure out a way to do that, just get pucks onto the net. The offense can take care of the rest. They have the ability, but you can't score just a conventional way. They're going to have to get creative unless they're on the power play, in which case, good luck to Florida, really. So those are going to be my keys to the game. Obviously, Brit has given hers with the goaltending. Let us know your thoughts. If I have to pick, I don't think Brit sent a prediction. But this one, again, like I said, it feels like it could go the distance, but I am going to lean into Edmonton and their just offensive ability to get it done. So I'm thinking Edmonton in 7, and they become the first Canadian team since 1993 to hoist the Stanley Cup. Again, could go completely different. We'll have to see how it goes. But I just think that in this case, the offensive ability, should win the day, is my guess. So we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, there's another few games to go. Could be done in 4, and there's a sweep. Could go all the way to 7, like I was thinking, and it could be the wrong team that I picked. So that's the beauty of not knowing the future. Okay, so that's going to run us all the way to the end of this episode. Appreciate everybody for joining us on this episode of the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network. Again, if you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do so on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. With that being said, Stanley Cup Final, which is the greatest part of the season, but also means the end of hockey for the summer. So, who do you have? The Panthers, the Oilers, and how many games? Who do you think becomes the Conn Smythe winner? You'll just have to let us know. DM us, send us a message, and don't forget to follow along to these episodes weekly. We try to keep them as consistent as possible, but always follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when a show does occur. So, with that being said, hopefully everyone has a great start of the weekend tomorrow. Enjoy Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. And as always, go Avs go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.